Hey everyone.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Evolve Nation.
Yeah, we have to figure out if we can copyright Evolve Nation because I love it.
I love it.
Welcome
It's
to
our
the
nation. It's
Yeah,
our people's.
I agree. I mean,
It's
it's
our
not ours.
people's.
It's everybody's.
Well,
But
you're mine.
yeah.
You're
Today
mine.
we're talking about surrender. Surrender, not like in a sexy way. It's kind of sexy.
I mean,
Surrender.
surrendering is sexy because it really does feel good to
I think there's a difference
let go.
between surrender and being submissive, which is a topic for a whole other episode.
No, submissive is completely different. I've never seen it as the same. To surrender and be submissive. Submissive's sexy. Surrendering is like,
okay.
I would not say that you surrender in sex. I think I let things happen to me.
All right, that's interesting.
Sexier. Okay, wow, we are going in a whole nother direction.
So today we're talking about the art of surrender in marriage.
Yeah.
We're especially talking to those people who, even now, as you hear what I just said, the art of surrender in marriage, probably already resisting it because you're a bit of a control freak like Kate and I.
Well, that's because they like Kate. I'm like, no, for sure, like me, but also you.
But also both of us. And I think a lot of people, right, in the world that we live in today, we want to be in control. We want to try to control things. We're constantly trying to control things. And I think this idea of surrender has not only been really good for our marriage, but also our life.
Yeah, I think when you're trying to hold on to something you cannot control, even though inwardly you're like, I can control this. No, like you cannot control it. You cannot control things that are outside of you. Puts a strain on you, which puts a strain on your marriage, which puts a strain on your life and family. It's got this major snowball effect. So
we're going to talk about what that is.
Yes.
What surrender actually means, what you can do about it, and really,
why it's not about sex.
Yeah, how you can have a better life.
Yes.
I think that's what we want to get to is help people feel better about their experience of life.
Yeah, I love
it's
that.
a big deal. But first, the question.
Well, yes.
So I'll ask it to you first. Where in your life or in our relationship or in relationships in general are you gripping too tightly? And what makes letting go feel scary and uncomfortable?
This is a deep one. That's my answer to this. I thought about it when we were planning the podcast and I saw this question. I was like, this is gonna be deep. This is gonna open up a lot. But I think for me, I'm gripping tightly. I am still gripping tightly to the idea that our relationship is going to fail. I think many moons ago, when our relationship was going through a really, really rocky time, and we weren't sure if we were going to continue it because, there was verbal abuse and physical abuse and alcoholism. And it was like, I had given up on our marriage. I had decided that this needs to end. I can't trust Eric to be the man I need him to be. And so I decided at that point that our marriage was over. And I think part of me still holds on to that because there's this fear of if I let Eric in, if I accept that this marriage is not over, then what if something bad happens and I wasn't ready for it? It's like I have to have my guards up because I'm like, if Eric were to start drinking again 7 years later for whatever reason, or if we were to start, if the physical abuse was going to start again, or the mental abuse or the verbal abuse, if that were to start again, I won't be ready for it. And I won't be on guard and ready to react at anything. So I think there's definitely a bit of trauma that needs to be worked through. But I think for me, I'm gripping on tightly to that reality of our marriage. And obviously, as you can see, it gets me emotional to think about it because this is not a reality I want to hold on to. There's nothing in our marriage right now that is proving this reality to be true. But it's maybe because I lived with it for so long, it's hard for me to let that go. And so I would say that, yeah, that's something that I'm holding on tightly to because I'm afraid that if I let go, I won't be ready for any outcome.
Yeah, that was great. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people can relate to kind of your plight. I always have to guard a bit of myself so that I'm ready no matter what. Yeah,
and I even have a friend who they had infidelity in their marriage, and she has the same thing as me. It's I can't let go of the fact that my husband might cheat on me again. I cannot let it go. And as much as you try and you forgive and everything is proving that this is not going to happen again. Eric, I know deep down inside, I know Eric is not going to drink again.
It's like rationally.
Rationally, I know it, but emotionally, it's like my body's
It's hard
like,
to open your
nope,
heart to that. Yeah.
nope, yeah.
And I think that, what you're describing is common in a lot of relationships and often prevents a relationship from really thriving.
Exactly.
At the same time, it's like you could never fully open yourself up to me.
Yeah.
You can never fully be vulnerable.
Yes. And us going through therapy and talking to different therapists, like that's always been the common theme. It's always been like Kate's got one foot out the door. And it's like, yeah, because if I put 2 feet in the door, what if something bad happens? And sometimes I do it. Sometimes I'll have my 2 feet in the door and I'm like full in, and then you're like, something random happens, like you get angry and you like raise your voice a little louder than I'm used to now. And I'm like, there it is. And then my foot goes out the door.
Well, and I notice sometimes too, there's like words that I use, because something I'll often say is like, I can't keep doing this.
Yes.
Right? Like that.
Yes.
And
that's an immediate, like, see?
Yeah.
Our marriage is over.
And so, and it's so funny because like, not funny, but it's interesting because to me, I can't keep doing this means something needs to change. Like there needs to be a change that evolves and then kind of like changes this dynamic.
Yeah. And I can't keep doing this is really talking about a specific situation.
This type of behavior.
Not the entire marriage.
And I think that's kind of what you're taking it as, is like Eric is out of the marriage.
Yes.
To you, it's very black and white.
Yes.
Eric's either in the marriage, but if Eric's unhappy, he's out of the marriage.
And the reason I think like that is because I'm unable to surrender to the new version of our marriage. Is because I'm holding on too tightly.
That like somebody, I think about this too. I don't want to project too much onto you, but this belief that like you are lovable exactly as you are, and I will stay with you, and there's nothing that you can do that will make me just want to say I'm out. But like I'm going to be willing to work through anything.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother but it's the same. It falls into the same thing. Is I'm unable to let go of that idea that I'm not lovable.
Yeah.
Because if I let it go and I surrender to it and I do something and somebody is like, I don't like you. I'm like, if I only had held on to that and just kept pleasing you and kept being a great person.
And like how complex is it to metabolize like I don't feel lovable or I don't believe I'm lovable and Eric loves me.
Yeah.
It's too much, right? To like for your brain to be like, it's like, no, you can't.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate sharing that.
Yeah, anyway, that was really heavy, so beat that. Just kidding.
Competition. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
I win. No, but where in your life or in this relationship are you gripping too tightly, and what makes letting go feel so scary or uncomfortable?
So I think for me, that the first thing that came to mind is I grip very tightly on you and the kids' experience of life. And what I mean by that is that I have this idea in my head that I can do a lot of things that will lead you and the kids to have a fulfilling experience of life. And when you are unfulfilled or stressed out or anxious, I think especially around anxiousness and stress, I have this idea like, okay, I'm going to do something to
I'm
help
responsible to fix this.
overcome that. Yeah. So it's like, when you're stressed, I'm like, I need to like take things off Kate's plates, bring her out to do something, have fun, make more money, like spend more time together, whatever. And I think what I'm gripping to is this belief that it's my responsibility to make sure you and the kids have a good life. And I think what makes that so scary and uncomfortable to let go is I'm very afraid of judgment coming my way around like you didn't do enough for us to have a good life. You were a bad dad. You were a bad husband. You could have done all this stuff and you didn't. And the reason that we had such a crappy experience of life is your fault. And that's like what I'm trying to avoid by always saying one step ahead. And what that looks like is like oftentimes my needs are the first to go out the window.
Yes.
Right? If we're watching a movie together, always got to pick a movie Kate's going to like, you know, so that takes priority, you know?
And then the resentment builds because then I do so much for you guys. And so if I dare complain about my day or something, you're like, I do everything for you to have a great life. And here you are just complaining about it all the time. And I'm like, no, I just complained about this one situation.
And there's like this enmeshment. So I'm like, my kids are dissatisfied, but I give them everything. And so now it's like, again, like, obviously I don't give them everything, but it's like I give them a lot. So my idea is like, you should not be dissatisfied. I have solved that problem.
Yeah.
So now you're a problem. So I need to do more. And that's kind of the big mix up there.
And because you are a person, and I think like every human love give and take relationships where it's like,
there's a reciprocity.
I'll give. You, but I also want to take a little bit.
Yeah.
you give so much, there's no way anybody can take it, can give back the same amount you're giving, because you sacrifice so much of yourself in a way that's almost like borderline unhealthy for you.
Well, yeah, and I also have an incredible hard time receiving that.
It's true.
Receiving, right?
It's true, because it's true. Even yesterday I said, "Hey, let's pick a movie." And
you
then
said, "You pick a movie for you."
Yeah, and then you were
I'll
like,
sit with
"Well, like any movie?" And I was like, "Any movie. Like, this is your night to pick a movie for you. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's like," because I hate scary movies. I was like, "Watch a horror movie. Watch like a movie, like an action movie that I probably wouldn't like. Like, you can watch anything." And you were like, "Okay." And then you like had trouble. And even in the end, you were like, 2 movies you wanted to watch, but you were like, "This one or this
Which
one,
one
Kate?"
do you prefer?
And I was like, "Just pick one, Eric." God, like, I'm giving you the gift of picking the movie tonight. And you're like, "I can't do it. I just want you
And
to
I
be
think
so
a lot
happy."
of people can relate to this, men and women, is
Yeah.
like, what I'm avoiding in that moment is at the end, you being like, "That movie sucked." And I'm like, "Oh, no, I should have picked the other one."
Yeah, well,
Instead of just being okay with being like, "Yeah, maybe it sucked for you. I thought it was
I
awesome."
really loved
Right?
it. Yeah.
And I remember, like, even during the movie, I said, like, 3 or 4 times, like, "This is awesome. Like, thanks so much for watching this with me." 'Cause I
Yeah.
forget, I'm like, I love this movie. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I watched an old movie that I love. So
Yeah.
anyways, that's kind of my idea. We're just like the opening question here. It's been like 12 minutes.
Okay.
So let's jump into this idea of control. So first, I think that's what we need to talk about before we talk
Yeah.
about surrender.
Yeah.
So typically, people are obsessed with trying to control everything in their lives. The reason we do this is because we want to avoid any sort of discomfort. We want to have as much comfort as we possibly can. That's a very human thing. But what often then leads to is our mind starts to give us the illusion of control. And what that means is that we start to create this belief like we can control things that we can't actually control.
Mhm,
Is that making
mhm.
sense so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, just like I said in my example, this idea that I can control my kids' moods by doing things, and I can control your stress level by doing things. Sure, I can influence a little bit, but
Mhm.
in the end, there are things that are going to stress you out that I have no control over whatsoever.
Yeah,
Right?
and same with my example. If I try to control the relationship where we don't argue, nothing ever goes wrong. If there's something bad, I won't bring it up because, God forbid I rock the boat because our relationship is doomed. Like, that's it. We're like getting a separation. There's no
Yeah.
question about that. So whatever I can do to not rock the boat to get us to that place that I cannot let go of, that actual belief of like our relationship, we're done, like we're doomed, I will avoid. So I'm trying to grip that so hard, like, and you wrote it here, the jaws of life, because it truly is.
Yeah, it's
like,
true.
we're like, in order to live, I need to believe this so much, and I need to do all of these things so that this does not happen, so that my fear or what makes me uncomfortable doesn't actually come true.
Yeah, and this is really important here because I want to amplify this even more because this like actually dictates our entire life right now. Because what often happens then is if you truly believe that you can control a situation or solve for the situation, not only are you going to do everything you can in your power to try to control that situation, but you're also going to remove anyone from your life that tells you that you can't control that situation and you should stop trying. You're going to you're going to like be attracted to any sort of social media that's trying to tell you that you can control other people and you can manipulate other people and you can change the way your partner feels day to day, etc. And so what's then happening is you actually go even deeper into this vacuum, continuing to choose people around you, environments, information that actually amplify this illusion of control. And this is like sold to us. If we think about like what sells is like this idea that there is a solution, an easy button. How many men come to work with us in EMC and this is the first thing I tell them, literally get on a call with them and I'm like, hey, by the way, like I'm not going to solve all your problems. You're going to solve a lot of your problems, but it's going to take some hard work. This idea that like there's an easy way to have an awesome relationship is absolutely ridiculous. Your relationship is going to be the most challenging thing for you because it's going to mirror a lot of your own insecurities. And so again, I just want to like talk about that because you can start to see behavior in people that when they're like, I'm going to get my partner to do this and blah, blah, blah. And then somebody's like, well, I don't really think that's a healthy way. They just cut that person out of their life. They're like, I don't want to be around a person that tells me it's unhealthy to control my partner.
Yeah.
I only want to be around people that tell me my partner's a loser and he's crap and he needs to do more and I'm the best and all my needs matter and his needs don't matter. That's who I want to be around.
Yeah.
And so really important here to create awareness around not only your belief systems around control and really thinking about what you can and can't control, but then who do you have around you or what are the environments that you're in, whether what you're looking at on social media, what you're reading, who you're talking to, that actually amplify this idea that it's good to try to control others. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we have to be very, very careful about that.
Yeah.
So what we want to move towards instead is understanding this idea of what we can and cannot control. And a lot of people, they're unclear about this, right? For me, I love using the idea of influence versus control. So I accept that we have influence on each other. So if you're like, this is an example, like when Kate goes to yoga all the time, she goes and works out and eats healthy, that influences me to do, like, make healthy choices. If we're like in bed together and, we both read on a screen for a while, and then I stop reading on a screen for a week or so, you're going to start to realize too, like, I'm going to be on my screen less. So that's an example of how we model behavior and we can influence. We are influenced by our environments. But I cannot control Kate and try to get her to do something that she actively does not want to do. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
So if Kate wants to be on her phone, this is actually what happens in our marriage a lot. Kate likes having her phone in her bed. She uses her phone a lot to soothe herself and all that stuff. You fall asleep. You listen to sleep stories. Again, like I'm not, it's not a judgment. It's just like, that's the thing that you have. But to me, I have this idea that it's like, if you didn't have your phone in the room, you would have a better sleep and you would get used to sleeping better. Again, that's my idea.
Yeah.
So the amount of times that, I don't want to say a lot, but like probably once a week, I say like, hey, have you thought about like not having your phone in the room? And, and you have a reason. We kind of go through a rigmarole for a minute or two. And then eventually Kate just like has her phone. So I've kind of given up on this idea. So I can influence you by not having my phone in my room. But in the end, you get to decide if you want your phone in the room or not. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the first place, is we need to be able to separate what is in our control and what's not in our control. What's in our control are things that we can do, things that we can think, and things that we can kind of withhold from doing. So do or not do. Those are really the only things that are in our control. Is that fair? Is there anything else you need to add?
No, I think that's, I think you've covered it all, because really, like, we don't want to, I don't want, like, it's so easy to fall into this mindset of like, well, yeah, but if I tell her enough, she'll eventually get the hint. It's like, well, no, it doesn't matter how many times you tell somebody, you can't make a fish walk. Like, you just can't.
So this is a perfect example, because we can use the sex example, right? Yeah,
fish example
was kind of
wasn't
weird.
good. It was like the first thing I thought of, but I was like, no, but eventually you want to get a person to influence. Can't even influence.
It's like you wouldn't try
to
get a fish to walk because you believe that they can't walk. But therefore you might actually you believe things that you try to get people to do stuff, right? Yeah. So the example I always use is like a sex thing. Like a lot of guys I work with, right? One of the big things that they have good relationships, but they're like, I want to have better sex with my wife. Like, I want to have great sex. And that's fair. I think like people who like having great sex and who have great sex just love it. So it's great. So what they typically do is they try so their go-to is like, I'm going to tell my partner what I need as much as possible, and I'm going to tell her what I need. And eventually she's going to understand what I need, and she's going to decide whether or not she wants to provide it. So every day, maybe not every day, but like multiple times a week, this person says, I want to connect with you sexually. This is what I need. Why are you willing to provide that? Blah, 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 blah. And it happens over and over and over again. And then like 4 weeks into it, the guy's like, my wife's not having any more sex with me. And
now she's not even having good sex.
Right.
She's having no
so now
sex.
She's just avoiding talking to me altogether. So then it's like, well, what have you tried? He goes, well, every day I tell her what I need. Okay, listen.
No.
Your wife is very clear that you want to have sex with her. Like, okay, you don't have to
has
say,
been received.
Yeah, like, how often do I come by and tell you, like, I want to have sex with you? It just take into consideration that for the most part, I want to have sex with you. Okay, I don't have to tell you every day. Yeah. Because what happens is like, that is such a waste of time and energy after a while. This is kind of what I tell guys, like, okay, your wife knows. Okay, so you can stop telling her. She knows what you want. She knows that right now she could give more, all that kind of stuff. So let's just put that one on the shelf for a bit. Let's stop trying to get your wife to have sex with you by telling her every day what you need. And instead, let's think about doing other stuff. So what if you were more playful? What if you brought more novelty to your relationship? What if you, took care of stuff around the house more? What if you like just worked out more and try to get your social life somewhere else instead of just spending time with your wife all the time? So then you essentially like build this second order change where it's like, hey, what can you control around this? You can control telling your wife every day. But let's say we take that energy and we try something else. Then you can start changing environments. You can start changing relationships. And that's what we call second order change. And this is what I often, in order to get there, the man in this case that I'm working with has to surrender this idea that he needs to constantly remind his partner about sex or else they're not going to have sex. Like that's the idea that needs to be let go of. And as soon as you let go of that idea, as soon as you're like, my partner knows I want to have sex with them, I accept that. You can even go to your partner and say like, hey, do you know that I really enjoy having sex with you and I'd love to have more sex? Right? And the partner will be like, yeah, I know that. Awesome. I'm never going to have to ask you again, or maybe I'll just start asking you next year, but I don't need to ask you. So I'm going to put my energy somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's the idea of focusing on what you can control and how to do things differently. But in order to do that, you have to surrender to that belief.
You're being very clear. And I think that, talking about surrendering in that idea is so big because I do see that a lot of the problems in relationships is because you continue to repeat, and continuing to repeat something is nagging. And even though it's like, hey, I love to have sex with you. This is what I love to have sex with. It's not like, do this, do this, do it's still nagging. It's still nagging.
Oh yeah.
It's just like
The opposite side is totally true, where it's like, in our house, like we have like kind of a hole in our ceiling. That hole in our ceiling's been there for like over a year. It's like when the guys came and visited from the EMC, they kind of laughed at, is that hole still there? And I'm like,
yeah,
yeah,
the
there's a
hole
whole
is
water
still
thing.
there. The hole is still there.
So could you imagine if every day Kate told me, I'd love you to patch that hole in the ceiling?
Maybe it would have been done.
Every day. It might have been done just
No,
to
you know what?
stop
I've
hearing it.
surrendered to the skylight that looks into my second floor bathroom.
That's right. Yeah. So, but that's an example. Listen, that could get done.
Could get
And I tried to do it one time. Like, oh, now I have to do more. Anyways,
now it opened up a can of worms.
I have a lot of great excuses why it's not done.
Yeah.
But as you can see, in that moment, could you imagine how much energy it would take away from Kate? How much energy it would take away from me if she came up to me every day and just said, "I'd love that whole. Maybe we can try this. Maybe we could do that. Maybe we could do this." Listen, Kate's either going to say, "I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to engage Eric, and we're going to do it together," or it's just
hire somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm hiring somebody.
And so you have to decide. So probably, like you're saying, there's a form of surrender here to say, I just have to accept, and when people are going to walk in my house, they're going to look up, and there's going to be a hole in our ceiling.
They can see the bottom of my bathtub.
Yeah. And you have to surrender this idea that you're going to be judged for it, that people are going to think you're less, that like whatever, right? And because you've surrendered to that, now you're able to focus on other things.
Yes.
Probably enjoy your house more.
Yeah.
Probably enjoy your husband more.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the whole idea, is we have to think about, yes, we want things, but you have to stop trying to work so hard or try to control others in order to get what you want, because that can be very disruptive. And so, yes, what you want is valid, but part of being an adult, part of being a mature adult, is understanding that you can want things and you might not always get them immediately.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the part of surrender is, let's say you had like 90% of your life was really great and you were obsessed with the last 10% and trying to make that perfect. What if instead you just worked hard at surrendering that 10% will always be there?
Yeah.
It'll always be incomplete. There'll always be dissatisfaction. Can you live with a life that's 90% awesome and 10% not so awesome?
Yeah.
Because some people, what happens is that 10% invades them.
Yeah.
And they forget about their 90%.
Mm-hmm.
I've met people like this. We've all met people like this. They have it all. They have everything. I know people, they have lots of money. They own multiple properties. They're in good shape. And every time I meet them, they are miserable. And the reason they're miserable is because there's like a 2% or whatever. Yeah. It's not perfect yet.
Yeah. I think taking this elsewhere though, like I think surrendering also, like if you look more at like my situation, like surrendering to the fact that my marriage is safe and that I'm, we're doing okay, that things are going to happen, that arguments are going to come up, surrendering to that isn't as easy as like surrendering to the fact that there's a hole in my ceiling. But surrendering to that makes me see that there are things that I personally need to work on, that I might have to go seek therapy, or that I need to focus inwards on some of the trauma or things that have been our relationship has brought on. So I think that surrendering also makes you see that there's something deeper here sometimes.
Yeah, and I think too, like what you're saying is like Brene Brown talks about this idea of like foreboding joy. But it's like I understand that so experiencing joy is one of the most vulnerable things we can experience. So many people don't let themselves experience joy because exactly what you're talking about. If I open myself up to this and then something bad happens, that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
So what they do is they don't allow themselves to fully experience joy, like fully experience goodness, because they want to make sure that if that goodness goes away, the pain is not great.
Yes.
And so that's kind of like what you're talking about, which is like, I could have a great marriage, but if I totally go in on believing that I could have a great marriage or that this marriage is great or that things are really awesome, well, then when something bad happens, it's going to hurt 10 times as much.
Yes.
And so in order to prevent myself from hurting 10 times as much in the future, if something goes wrong and kind of like, dealing with that, I'm just going to accept that like, I'm never going to look at things like being too good. I'm always going to accept that like there's a negative part of everything.
Yeah.
And you might, I don't know if you notice that, but I noticed that in your life a lot. And now like Francis does it too, right? Like our son, it's like, hey, are you excited? And he's like, oh, I don't want to get too excited because, like some bad things might happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but like, isn't it great to get excited? But it's like, he's trying to prevent the downfall later.
Disappointment.
So he's just like, to him, he's never excited about anything. He's like, I don't want to be excited about anything.
Yeah.
Because getting excited and then losing, like being like, well, that went away is too painful.
Yeah, or just kind of what he did for the high school program, that there's like this elite sport high school program. He could become a goalie eventually. This is like 3-4 years away, but he has already accepted that he's not making the team
That's right. Yeah,
because he so just doesn't want to be disappointed.
exactly.
So if he prepares himself for that disappointment now, when he doesn't get accepted, it's going to sting a lot less. And when he does get accepted, he's going to celebrate. But he's convinced himself that he won't be accepted. So I think this is a very, very like normal human thing to do because, like you said, we seek comfort. We seek, stillness and safety in our lives. And if anything comes to rock that, we're going to do anything to try and come back to that like comfort, safety baseline.
100%. It's like we want to avoid discomfort at all costs. So think about intimate relationships. It's like I'm willing to sacrifice an intimate relationship. I'm willing to sacrifice true human connection because it's too uncomfortable in the beginning. And so I'd rather actually just avoid that discomfort. And what I'm willing to sacrifice is true human connection. And like people just decide that's what they decide. They just say like we're not connected, right? That's why long-term marriages who have been married a long time, they're just like in this limbo, like detente phase.
Hmm.
Just like, they talk about what do they call like a gray divorce or like invisible divorce now, which is like it's just like slowly but surely you're just like doing this. And then you wake up 20 years later and you're like, well, we haven't really been loved each other for 20 years. Might as well
Yeah, they
divorce.
call that staying together for the kids.
But it's
Yeah.
kind of that thing. It's like you're protecting yourself from discomfort,
Yeah.
from opening yourself up, kind of what you're saying. It's like if I fully open myself up to this marriage, I fully go all
Hmm.
in, what if Eric doesn't like that version of me? Or what if something
Hmm.
goes wrong and then Eric steps back? Well, I'm going to avoid that pain. I always staying just a foot out,
And I
right?
think that by avoiding the pain, I'm not contributing to that like 90% happiness. Because even if, whatever, something happens, our marriage does end. At least the like 10 years we have together in the meantime will be good memories, will be us having fun, will be us feeling connected, feeling close. Maybe I'm like stressing out for this marriage to end and I'm like, "Oh my god." And because of that, I'm like frozen. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to
Yep.
rock the boat. I don't want to talk about anything hard. I don't want to engage in anything too risky because oh gosh, what if something happens? Like we don't know. Like I could die tomorrow. Like you could die tomorrow and then all that stress for what? Nothing. Like it's just I think we when we grasp onto something so tightly, we lose sight of all the good that could happen if we just surrendered, if we just let it go.
Mhm. Yeah, held it a little more loosely. And
Yeah.
so this is our challenge to you this week as you're thinking about your life. Where are you holding on to control a little bit too tight? Or because we always say like what you resist persists. So if you're kind of resisting letting go, well, you're always going to feel some sort of discomfort around that area, right? The more I
Mhm.
try to get you to have a sexual relationship with me, to have more sex with me, to have the kind of sex I want, the more I feel dissatisfied.
Yeah.
But instead, if I accept the way things are and I just decide to show up with love, with fun, with novelty, typically we have a thriving connection. And so understanding like, okay, what is it in my life that I can let go of, surrender to, and understanding what's the discomfort that I have to accept or work through in order to really let that go. And if you want some help, we have a free relationship assessment you can do. So again, there's a link in the show notes below. You can click that. You can answer a few questions by yourself or with your partner. Kate and I get that information. We look through it, right? It's private. Only Kate and I will look at it. And then we'll send you a 30-day action plan of what you can do directly back to you so that you can start taking action in your relationship and creating more of the type of love that you want. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye. Thanks for being here.